maybe we'll go crazy and start them all. Chickies, what are you doing over here? You're not supposed to be over here. Look this way. Come on. There we go. I did let them out, but they were well, supposed to be sort of staying in the corner. Kinda. Without me setting up a proper fence. Hey Trevor, come on. I left the gate open on purpose because I wanted them to eat the weeds in the corner, but and Angus's demolished car site is here, but it's not a proper barrier, so they eventually climb over, which is not a huge deal, but I would rather them eat the long weeds over there. Angus demolished his car that he was working on because he wasn't happy with the flaws in the structure. So he kind of wants to start again and build one. I'm currently trying to decide whether to start pepper seeds or not. I put it on my wall planner as mid-July to start germinating the peppers in my paper towel method in the hot water cupboard. Last year I didn't do any because of, coming back from overseas and being behind and everyone recovering from being sick and jet lag and catching up with everything. I thought I'd just buy some pepper plants, and then I completely forgot to do that later on because I'm not used to doing that. I usually grow almost everything from seed. So we didn't end up with any pepper plants. This year, suddenly, I can't eat peppers, which is sad and hopefully not a permanent or long-term thing. But I have no idea if or when I'll be able to eat peppers again. But also, I still don't know what we're doing with regards to moving. Partly it's about how many peppers we're going to use, and a lot of it's about how long are we going to be around for, and how many little seedling trays and pots do I want sitting on our table on the deck. What to do? I decided to start a few peppers because it's more fun that way. I can always offload them if I really need to, but I don't like not starting any because then you really don't end up with anything. I've got quite a few varieties of peppers, sweet peppers, paprika peppers, some spicy peppers, mostly cayenne's the usual spicy one we grow. I don't have to grow them every year, usually every second year, although I didn't grow any last year, but I think we've still got enough. Yeah, we've still got enough dried ones. We dehydrate them and then grind them up into cayenne pepper. So the ones that I pulled out of my stash are Germinating, which is, I think I only got to grow that once maybe. It's an heirloom pepper, a long red one, tapered red one, that had good flavour, and they did pretty well. They seemed to have quite a few fruits on them, so just trying to use up a few packets too. So by December 2024, so I think they're only a couple years old. Hopefully they'll be right. Capsicum tollis. I have heaps of these. I've grown these for a while. They're an heirloom pepper as well. And I pretty much save seeds from them every year. So this packet's from 2019. And there are still quite a few in there, so maybe I'll start them all. Who knows? I mean, I might as well. They're getting old, so maybe we'll go crazy and start them all. And then lastly, shishito peppers. So these are, well, they're said to be slightly spicy, but I wouldn't think of them as a spicy pepper, but they're not just plain like a bell pepper. They've got more flavour, like very, very tiny hint of, I guess, what you call heat, but it's, I mean, to me it's just more flavourful, more robust, but I guess it's very, very slight heat. But it's just an interesting flavour. Those are a green pepper, small green peppers that are tapered. They are good producers. They have lots on the bush, so there aren't that many of those left, so I might as well just use up this seed packet too. This says sow by January 2024, so they're getting a bit old too. These are the oldest of each of these three that I've got. So I'll show you how I start them. I've got a plate. Doesn't have to be a square plate, but it's convenient for this. Some small plastic bags. These are just like sandwich size or whatever, Ziploc bags. And some paper towels. I fold the paper towel in half, and then usually I rip that in half and then fold each of those halves into half again. So you can cut them if you want to, but it doesn't really matter. So that's in half, and then what we're going to do is wet the paper towels and then squeeze them out until they're not too wet. I'm going to fold this in half again. So this is a half a paper towel, and then I've folded that in half, and then we're just going to fold it in half again, and the seeds are going to go inside here on this wet paper towel, and that will fold over top of them so they're covered over, and then that's going to go in the bag. The reason I like to do the paper towel in half, depending on the thickness as well, because these are quite thick, you don't need a whole one. I can do another one of a different variety beside here, as long as you label them properly. And then the other bag will have the masses of Tollis seeds that I've got in it. First I'm going to label my bags. So this one's going to have shishito and germinate pepper. My saved seed packets, I write the month and the date on there, but if it's just the original seed packet I'll leave it blank so that I know which particular packet of seeds those came from. Now I'm going to wet the paper towel under the tap. You use filtered water if you've got a filter, just to keep things more clean. I'm going to wet it and then squeeze it out until I've got most of the moisture out. You kind of want it, I guess you'd call it moist, so it shouldn't be dripping wet, but it also can't be too dry, otherwise the seeds are going to run out of moisture before they germinate. So I wet this one and then squeezed it until not to the point where you can't undo it, but just squeeze it just enough so that it's firm but not like strangling it, and so that you can unfold it. So see, it's still fairly wet, but it's not just dripping all over the place. So that's a good amount of moisture. Where's my fold? Okay, pay attention to where my fold is down the middle, and then I'm going to put the seeds along the top one, and then this will fold over like an envelope but without sides. Okay, so Jimmy. Well, I've got a few more than I thought, but we might as well do all of these. Some of them won't germinate, especially if they're getting older. Some of them might germinate but just not do very well if they're just not very strong seeds, like if they weren't from a very good plant or a very good fruit off a particular plant, or just not a very well developed seed. This one looks a bit blackish, so but we're going to put them all in and see what happens. Or if the plant wasn't grown in very good conditions, there's all sorts of things that can affect how good the seed is. And then it can just also be the conditions that you're germinating them in, maybe where that particular seed was a little bit dry or a little bit too wet, or there was some sort of contamination on there. And some of them will grow well. Hopefully most of them. Hopefully most of them. Well, hopefully as long as some of them grow, that's good. So we just fold that over. I'm just patting it down slightly just to make sure it's sticking so that they don't all go flying out. And then I'm going to carefully put them into their labelled side of the bag. And then we're going to move on to the next one, which is shishito. You don't have to have a plate, that's just to catch the drips, any drips that are left over from the paper towel, and because it's wet and soggy. You don't have to start your peppers like this. I tried it one time because I was doing it for other things like pumpkins, and I was having trouble germinating my peppers. Whoops, that's Thomas. Peppers can be hard to germinate in potting mix sometimes, or seed raising mix, because they really do need a lot of warmth, and they can just be a bit tricky to get them to the right depth. And so I was having trouble one time, and I thought, oh, why don't I try them using this method? And it worked really well. It is an extra step, but it's kind of fun getting to lay them all out in little lines and then checking on them and seeing a little root start to develop. And then I know that every seed I've planted has germinated. So none of them are failed seeds. They could still have something go wrong at that point. Now I'm going to turn this around so it's facing away from open edge, away from the other variety. There we go. So we've got two varieties in here. I like to try and get a little bit of air in the bag and then seal it up. It saves on the seed raising mix or potting mix because every seed has germinated already, so I know that they are working. And even if something goes wrong at that point, that'll be more on my part. It just takes out some of the waiting and the guesswork. Generally it takes at least a week for peppers to germinate. It can take more. So I've had situations where I've been waiting for them to germinate for a while and then nothing happens. They just didn't, or not many of them germinated, and then I'd have to start more again, but it would be weeks behind by that point. Doing this method, you can see sooner if each seed is actually growing because you'll see a root forming or you'll see nothing. So that's going to happen earlier than if you sow them straight into pots or trays. You can't see what is rooted. You have to wait till the green growth starts coming, which is later. So this enables me to have a better idea of how many are working, how many I'm going to end up with, and whether I need to start more, and then I can get them started sooner if the seeds aren't going very well. Now I'm going to put these into the hot water cupboard. We have a hot water cupboard with a hot water cylinder, so I just put this bag on top of the hot water cylinder with its cover, insulated cover, and wait. Actually, one thing I just about forgot to do was write the date. The date on the bag. Definitely need to write the date because then you know how long it's been in there for. If it's getting to like 2 weeks and nothing's happened, then that's a problem. So here we go, first bag. Now we've got the masses of Tollis peppers, Tollis pepper seeds. Because there are so many, I'm going to do a full paper towel sheet for these ones. So fold it in half, and then I'm going to fold it in half again, so it's in quarters, and then that squarish is going to fit into my bag, so it'll fit more seeds on there. So I'll wet that. Let's get all these old seeds on here. Let's just sprinkle, because there are so many. Too many to space out nicely. We're doing them all, people. Okay. Tollis. And it's from the packet 03/19. And today's date. This is actually the most that I've ever done like this. And this is a little bit insane, but since they're getting old and I have multiple packets of newer ones, I might as well just see how they all go. And if they all do well, then I guess I'll just be selling some. Right, close them up in there. I wouldn't start this many usually, and definitely not if you're just starting out with this method. I would just start with a few of each variety, just to get the hang of how wet the paper towel needs to be. If it's too wet, the seeds can go mouldy because they're sitting around in too much water. If they're fast germinating ones, you can get away with it a bit more, but if they're things like peppers or older seeds or just varieties that take longer to germinate, then too much wetness is not good. If it's too dry, that's a problem too, especially if it happens once the roots have already come out, because then the seed and the root can dry out and that can die. So we don't want that to happen. But at least if it is too dry, you can just open the bag and sprinkle a little bit of water on there. So that's not the end of the world. You just need to keep an eye on them. So I'll check them. Normally I'll check them every couple days, or depending what the seeds are. If they're pumpkins or cucumbers, they really need to be checked every day because they can germinate really fast, especially the big pumpkins. Yep. So I'll check them every couple days, and hopefully we'll get some nicely germinated little seeds. Some things that I do know I want to sow are celery and parsley, because those are the things that I use a lot in cooking and making bone broth. So I need to keep up a supply of those regardless of whatever we're doing. On my yearly planner, my note is to start them at the start of July, which I kind of missed because that was when the things got really bad for me. But I'll get them done now, and then at least they'll be on the way. Can you blow while you're swinging? I'm going to start the celery and the parsley in 6 cell packs. What I usually do is a pinch of seeds in each one, but I'll do a big pinch of seeds in each one. I know I had to buy celery last year, so I know the celery seeds did not have very good germination. The parsley, I can't remember. I know we had a bunch of volunteer parsley, but I had planted some too, so maybe it did do alright. Ideally, about 6 parsleys is good for around the garden. Yeah, the celery that I bought last year did not do very well. It just got diseased, I still had enough to use because I had enough plants, but they didn't produce as many stems and they didn't get as big as they should have before they would start getting all brown and spotty, and I think it's probably like a kind of rust or some sort of fungal thing. I just need to make sure, maybe I'll do 12 celeries. I've still got a little bit of my last bag of Dalton's organic seed raising mix here. Just a little bit, but I'm saving that for things that really need it. So I'm going to use the Tui Performance Organic Spotting Mix in here and then just put a little bit of seed raising mix on top because that's nice and fine. This is how fine the Dalton's organic seed raising mix is. Unfortunately, they're not making the organic one anymore. This will just give a nice fine bed for the little tiny seeds. So hopefully they don't get lost and fall down too deeply, because that is one of the problems with tiny seeds. Lots of celery. Make sure we get some. Done. I'm putting them in this little propagator here. I'll put the lid on once this water is done with. Just wet the surface a little bit and filled up the tray with a bunch of water. So once they've soaked, once they get heavy and they've soaked up enough water, I'll tip the rest of that out, and then we'll pop the top on just to help keep them a little bit warmer, to get them growing a bit faster. They can be beside the lettuces. The lettuce seedlings are doing well. The mixed brassicas for microgreens that I sowed in here were not doing well at all, and I thought they might be all dud, but we've had a few start coming up now. Yay! A few down there, so that's good. At least there's something happening in there now. I've just watered the lettuces, so they're a little bit floppy, but we've got a mixture of colours and varieties in there, so that will be nice. Showing a few signs of nutrient deficiency, so I actually need to give those a little bit of fertiliser next time I water them. Well, that felt good to get some seeds started, even if I don't know exactly what I'm doing. It's nice to have something growing, something to look forward to. Tomatoes are the next decision that I have to make. I usually start those at the very start of August. Thanks for joining us in today's vlog, guys. Choose to grow hope, and we'll see you next time. Bye.